So the Green Bay Packers were pretty busy at the start of free agency, signing two pretty big contracts on day one of free agency in guard Aaron Banks and cornerback Nate Hobbs. And to start this free agency off, the Green Bay Packers had a decent amount of money to work with. Now all the legwork is coming out from both of these contracts, so now we can actually see what the cap hits are for both Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks and look at the legwork of the contract to see where the Packers currently stand in terms of the salary cap. So in today's video, we're going to break down each of the two new contracts for the Green Bay Packers, what their salary cap hits look like in 2025 and also future years, and then finally see what money the Packers have left right now and if there's still possibility that they could still sign some free agents and who those free agents might be. Guys, if you're a new viewer to this channel and want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason, from free agency to draft content, you'll find it here all on this channel, and also the quickest Packers news. Go down and click subscribe if that does interest you. I'll probably be doing my mock draft tomorrow. I kind of wanted a few days of free agency to pass because I don't want the Packers to sign a player the moment I release a mock draft. That's kind of just how things go, so I kind of want to let things simmer a little bit. But yeah, I'll probably release the mock draft tomorrow, the post early free agency mock draft for the Packers at least. All right, so the two free agents that the Packers signed. I've made plenty of videos going over each free agent. I went over a tape breakdown from Nate Hobbs. If you want to watch that, I highly suggest it. It's on my channel. You can click the link right above. So they signed Nate Hobbs to a 4-year, $48 million contract, and they also signed Aaron Banks to a 4-year, $77 million contract. And one of the main things with the Green Bay Packers is wait for the legwork of the contract to come out, because we saw it yesterday with Nate Hobbs. If you watched my tape video, I briefly went over his salary cap hit for 2025 and how it's very, very low, and the deal is made out very well for the Green Bay Packers. And I thought that would be the case with Aaron Banks just because of how Russ Ball dictates his contracts. But it is actually a pretty hefty contract when you look at it. There's not a ton of guarantees. It's just the signing bonus under, I think it's under $28 million, $27.5 million. But it is still a lot of money. So let's break these down. Let's dive into it. So bringing up the screen, first we'll start with Nate Hobbs' contract. So again, a 4-year, $48 million contract. From the surface level, that's $12 million average per year. But when you look at the contract legwork over the next 4 seasons, you can really start to see the shape of it and what it looks like for the Packers overall. And overall, it's a very, very cheap contract, in my opinion, based on salary cap percentage. What I really like to look at for contracts, because the cap hit is what matters for your team for salary cap reasons, right? That's what's allocated for your salary cap, and what you have left over is what you can spend. Kind of like how the contracts past 51 don't really count towards your salary cap, but you're still paying those players. To me, the salary cap matters in terms of what you can spend. So instead of APY, I think cap percentage is a much more accurate representation of what you're paying a player. And Nate Hobbs is only going to account for 2% of the salary cap in 2025, a cap number just under $6 million. So anyone worrying about it being an overpay or saying it's an overpay and the Packers paid way too much for Nate Hobbs. I mean, he's a 26-year-old cornerback, I think 25 turning 26, showed a ton of potential on some pretty poor defenses over there in Las Vegas. And I think the Packers can definitely maximize his potential. And for this minimal amount of money, considering the salary cap goes up every single year, so these percentages could be even lower in years 2026, 2027, and then 2028. But still, even at 4.4% in 2026, that's a very low percentage for a potential starting cornerback that can give you a ton of snaps on your defense, which I fully expect him to be. I have high hopes for Nate Hobbs, but 2% this first season at $6 million is a very, very cheap deal. And the Packers' first out would be after 2 years. This deal is structured a lot like the Josh Jacobs deal, or a lot like every other deal that Russ Ball hands out that's a 4-year deal. It's pretty much a 2-year deal and then 2 team year options in year 3 and year 4. And that's exactly what it is here. So, you know, it's almost a guarantee Nate Hobbs will be a part of this football team for the next 2 seasons. But say if it doesn't work out, which that is a possibility, of course, the Packers have an easy out in year 3, where he'll set to have a $14 million cap hit. they could cut him, save $6 million, and his cap, or dead money, should I say, would be $8 million. Or if they wanted to wait for a post-June 1st, the cap hit would then drop down to $4 million dead money, and they'd save $10 million on the salary cap. So overall, a very affordable contract for a cornerback that's going to play a lot of snaps for this defense, whether that's at boundary corner in base defense or sliding into the nickel on passing downs. The Packers are going to be able to utilize his talents in a multitude of ways. Now moving over to the Aaron Banks one, we were waiting a while for this one, and usually the longer it takes for the details of a contract to come out usually means there's a lot of fluff inside of it by an agent, and they posted the numbers really quickly to make you go, oh my gosh, that's a huge contract. Then the couple days pass and the real details come out and you're like, okay, that was a lot of fluff. It's really not that big of a contract. And I thought that'd be the case with Aaron Banks, but it is still a lot of money. And in terms of cash paid, which is different than cap number, but cash paid in 2025, it's by far the highest amount of cash paid to a guard in the NFL by far. So Aaron Banks signed that 4-year, $77 million contract. And the instant news was that only his signing bonus was guaranteed. And that's a good thing, right? Less guarantees, the better. It gives you more flexibility later in the contract. His signing bonus was $27 million and is guaranteed and paid as a signing bonus. Now, he gets that cash right away in terms of a salary cap standpoint, but the Packers aren't charged that right away in terms of a booking standpoint, if that makes sense. So it's not like the Packers' salary cap hit this year is $27 million plus whatever his base salary and workout bonuses and per game bonuses is. That's not really how the salary cap works, but the Packers are paying him this money right now. It's just then prorated out to future years, and that's kind of how all the bonuses work and how salary cap works. And if you look at it at a percentage basis, it's still not bad, and that's why I really like to look at percentages here. It does get pretty pricey after year one. I mean, Packers are always going to backload, every team for that matter is always going to backload contracts because obviously the cap goes up every single year. It makes sense to pay less now and more in the future years when the cap's going to be higher and it's a less allocation of your salary cap. Now, for the deal, which was 19.25 APY, his cap hit for 2025 is only $9 million or 3.1%. Obviously, very affordable. But with such a low cap hit in year one, obviously that's going to jump significantly in future years. And this is something that the Packers typically don't do, put the heaviest cap hit in year two. So I'm kind of interested why Russ Ball did this. Maybe the salary cap outlook next year in terms of the contracts we'll have a little bit more money to play around with. So he's kind of thinking, hey, let's take that money there and spend it in year two, and then make it lower in year three, year four with the potential of that. Now for the Aaron Banks deal, a little bit different than Nate Hobbs in terms of when the potential out is. In my opinion, it's almost, year four. Yeah, they could get out in year three. Would it be that wise to take a $13.5 million dead cap hit after just 2 seasons of having this player in the building? Probably not. You would save $8.7 million. The difference there from 13.5, 22.25 minus 13.5. But in year four is really where you can save a lot of money moving on from this deal. You see $6.75 million dead money. That would be your cap hit for that year. And then you'd save $14 million on the salary cap there. Now, they can move on after 2 seasons if they have to. Obviously, you're not going into these deals with the projection of moving on after 2 years. What you're paying this player is to become a full-time starting and good guard for your NFL team. And hopefully that's what happens with Aaron Banks. But obviously, you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your team, your salary cap. So you put in potential outs to contracts. So one that's realistic is also, after the 2026 season, so Aaron Banks is here for 2 seasons, if the Packers have to move on, would be a post-June 1st release, which would really split that dead cap between the next 2 years. So it would split $6.75 million over 2027 and 2028, and they'd save $15.5 million. So if they want to move on after year 2, it would likely have to be a post-June 1st designated cut. But if they don't want to do a post-June 1st and they want that money for that current year's free agency, then it would probably be after year 3. So overall, this contract is definitely interesting. They're giving a lot of cash and they're putting a lot of capital into the potential of a player, which is, on par with the Green Bay Packers. And they're really good at evaluating offensive line. That's one thing that I'm trying to kind of take a backseat here in getting too worked up over this contract, because the Packers do a really good job in terms of their offensive line. So if Russ Ball and Brian Gutekunst are going out and giving a contract like this to a guard, and the guard market has reset. All the top guards in the NFL are getting paid this, and hopefully Aaron Banks, can show that he is a top guard. But if they're paying this out, I have trust in that, right? If it was a different position that the Packers usually aren't good at evaluating, then you'd be like, oh man. But in terms of offensive line, the Packers year in, year out have consistently one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So the fact that they made this move speaks a ton of volume, and paid this money speaks volume. And I'm interested in the future of this offensive line, what this kind of entails, because Elton Jenkins also has a $24 million cap hit, I believe, next season, not this upcoming one, but the one after that. Does this signal that the Packers aren't going to end up paying Rasheed Walker because they still have to pay Zach Tom and they project Jordan Morgan as left tackle? That seems the most likely case, but at least for this year, right now, Elton Jenkins is sliding to center and Aaron Banks will plug right in to starting left guard. All right, so now, of course, what do the Packers have available to spend right now? Because, hey, it's still free agency. There's still players available, and the Packers are likely still picking up the phone and calling players to potentially bring into this organization to bolster their roster. And, hey, the Packers still have a lot of money to potentially make more moves. They started with $43 million in cap space. Right now, after the Aaron Banks deal, the cap hit it's tied to for 2025, the Nate Hobbs deal, the cap hit for 2025, the Packers still have top 51 cap space of $29.9 million. Now, they still have to pay for their upcoming draft picks, which totals around $10 million, but won't cost the team $10 million because you only pay for the top 51 contracts. So if you include that draft pool in this assessment, they still have $27.1 million in cap space. They still could trade for Trey Hendrickson and pay him. That is a possibility. Do I see it likely? Probably not, but they could. I still think the Packers are going to try to get a veteran edge rusher into this room, though. And there is a rumor of that. And to me, this is just a rumor. It's not an official source, in my opinion, but it is a rumor that the Packers are very interested in bringing in Dante Fowler. And there's mutual interest between the two to get a deal done. Now, this is a very intriguing one and something I'd be on board with. Although he didn't have a crazy high pass rush win rate to end the season, he still would have led the Packers in most stats in terms of a pass rusher. And somehow, Dante Fowler's still only 30 years old. Fowler's coming off a 10.5 sack season where he had 50 total pressures for that Washington defense, his highest pressure amount since 2019. So Dante Fowler had a really solid 2024 campaign, and that was in under 700 total snaps. Even in 2023 with Dallas, he only played in 275 snaps, and he still had 36 pressures and 5 sacks. Now, he does have a missed tackle issue. He has a career missed tackle rate over 21%. You don't want this guy on the field when it's pure running downs early on. But if you want to bring in a veteran to pair next to Rashawn Gary on pure passing downs that has a career of getting after the quarterback and has the production of getting after the quarterback, which is really what the Packers are missing right now, Dante Fowler is a solid option. Now, some other free agents available, just looking at the free agents that are left, there's Von Miller, Zadarius Smith, you could cross him off this list. Somehow Azeez Ojulari still available. Very light for the Packers' liking, in my opinion, but still a very intriguing option there. DeMarcus Lawrence, Dante Fowler, as we just talked about. If they wanted to go interior defensive line, and Levi Onwuzurike still available, and he's someone I had highly touted in this free agency class. So I'm surprised he's still available. I'd be all for the Packers bringing in Onwuzurike. And I guess another position that they could maybe be looking at is wide receiver, but at this rate, I'm kind of out on that. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Keenan. I love Keenan Allen, but I mean, it seems like it's over. Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, MVS is like the one on this list that I'd be like, okay, maybe. Outside of that, I mean, I wish the Packers gave Nick Westbrook-Ikhine this deal that he signed with Miami, 2 years, $6.5 million. I would have been all for that. It would have been a good deal for the Packers. But at this point, draft a receiver. draft a receiver early, whether that's Matt Golden in the first, Jaden Higgins early second if you have to trade up, Trey Harris in the second. There's a ton of options, and they're a lot better than these options and the money you'd probably have to pay for it. So overall, both of these deals that the Packers made have their differences, but at the end of the day, their salary cap hits are both under 5% of the total salary cap in 2025, allowing the Packers to potentially make some more moves because they have $27 million in salary cap space and they can still make moves. So let me know down in the comments below what move you still want the Packers to make. I really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. Again, if you want to stay in the loop with everything Packers, be on page with all their salary cap, free agency moves, and the draft, you'll find it all here on this channel. Really appreciate you guys coming by. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack, go.